The crimson sands of Kepler 442b stretched endlessly beneath twin suns, their harsh light casting jagged shadows across the battlefield. Sergeant Marcus Chen adjusted his rifle's scope, watching the alien formations move like clockwork through the valley below. The Zephyrian Empire had declared humanity a minor threat, barely worth their attention. They were about to learn why that assessment would cost them everything. 3 months ago, the galaxy had been at peace. The Galactic Confederation maintained order across 17 star systems, with various species contributing their unique strengths to the collective defense force. The Thurokans provided brute strength and heavy armor, their 8-foot frames capable of carrying weapons that would crush lesser beings. The Valari contributed their lightning-fast reflexes and technological prowess, their forearms allowing them to operate multiple systems simultaneously. The crystalline Kithara offered their psychic abilities, reading enemy intentions before they could act. Humanity had been the newest addition to the Confederation, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 50 years prior. Their contributions seemed modest compared to the other species. Humans were neither the strongest, fastest, nor most technologically advanced. They possessed no psychic abilities, no natural armor, no enhanced senses that other species took for granted. When the Confederation's military advisors evaluated human capabilities, they were assigned support roles, logistics, communications, and basic infantry. That assessment changed when the Zephyrian Empire emerged from the galactic rim. The Zephyrians were conquerors by nature, a species that had consumed dozens of civilizations across their corner of space. Standing 12 feet tall, with chitinous armor, naturally grown into their flesh, they wielded energy weapons that could melt through most known defenses. Their military doctrine emphasized overwhelming force and rapid conquest, having never encountered meaningful resistance in their 300-year expansion. When they reached Confederation space, they issued a simple ultimatum: surrender or face extinction. The Confederation, confident in their combined might, chose to fight. The first engagement at Proxima Station lasted exactly 47 minutes. Zephyrian forces, numbering in the hundreds of thousands, swept through the defensive lines like a cosmic tsunami. Thurokan heavy weapons proved ineffective against Zephyrian armor. Valari speed meant nothing when the enemy could simply saturate entire areas with destructive energy. Even Kithara's psychic abilities failed against minds so alien and aggressive that reading their intentions provided no tactical advantage. The station fell with 93% casualties among Confederation forces. Marcus remembered the briefing after Proxima Station. Commander Sarah Mitchell, one of the few human officers in the Confederation military, had stood before the assembled survivors with grim determination. The loss had shaken everyone's confidence. But humans seemed to process tragedy differently than their alien allies. Where other species showed despair or rage, humans displayed something that puzzled their companions: calculating coldness. "We underestimated them," Mitchell had said, her voice cutting through the stunned silence. "They're bigger, stronger, better armed. Their tactics are sound, their equipment superior. By every metric, they should have won that engagement." A Thurokan general, his massive frame bearing scars from the recent battle, rumbled his agreement. "Their armor cannot be penetrated by our weapons. Their numbers are overwhelming. Perhaps we should consider the Emperor's terms." Mitchell's laugh had been sharp as broken glass. She activated the holographic display, showing footage from the battle. Zephyrian forces moved in perfect formations, their discipline absolute, their coordination flawless. But as Marcus watched, he began to see what Mitchell meant. "They're too perfect," she continued. "Look at their formations. Textbook. Look at their movements. Predictable. Look at their tactics." The image zoomed in on a Zephyrian commander, his ornate armor marking his rank, standing prominently as he directed his troops. Their officers lead from the front, visible and exposed, because in their entire history of conquest, they've never faced an enemy capable of reaching them at distance. The presentation continued, showing more footage. Zephyrian supply lines stretched openly across battlefields. Communication officers operated from exposed positions. Artillery commanders stood atop their vehicles for better visibility. Every leadership position was clearly marked, prominently displayed, utterly vulnerable. They've never fought anyone who could kill them from beyond visual range, Mitchell concluded. They don't even comprehend the concept. That was when humanity's true contribution to the war effort began. Marcus adjusted his position on the ridge, settling into the sniper's meditation his instructor had taught him years ago on Earth. His rifle, a modified M2010 enhanced sniper rifle, was nothing special by galactic standards. No energy weapons, no exotic ammunition, just precision engineering and chemical propellant. The aliens had initially dismissed such primitive technology. But Marcus knew something they didn't. Sometimes, the old ways worked best. The Zephyrian column below contained approximately 3,000 soldiers, moving in perfect formation toward the abandoned mining facility that served as bait. Hidden among them, Marcus could identify 17 officers by their distinctive armor configurations. 3 artillery commanders, coordinated from their elevated positions. 2 communication specialists maintained contact with the main force. 1 field commander, his armor decorated with golden insignia, directed the entire operation. Marcus smiled grimly and settled his crosshairs on the field commander's helmet. The physics of the shot were complex but manageable. Atmospheric density on Kepler 442b was roughly 80% of Earth's standard, affecting ballistics minimally. Wind patterns at this altitude remained steady from the northwest at approximately 12 kilometers per hour. Gravity was marginally stronger than Earth's standard, requiring slight elevation adjustment. Target distance: 2,400 meters. For a human sniper, it was a routine shot. The rifle's report echoed across the valley like thunder. The Zephyrian field commander's head snapped backward as the tungsten core bullet punched through his supposedly impenetrable helmet. Chaos erupted instantly among the alien forces as their rigid command structure collapsed. But Marcus was already shifting targets. The communication specialists were attempting to contact headquarters. His second shot eliminated the first before the alien could complete transmission. The third shot silenced the second before he could even begin. Artillery commanders were shouting orders, trying to locate the source of the attack. Marcus methodically eliminated each one, his rifle cycling with mechanical precision. Within 60 seconds, the entire Zephyrian command structure was decapitated. The alien soldiers below milled about in confusion, their perfect discipline crumbling without leadership. They had been trained for frontal assault, overwhelming force, direct confrontation. None of their doctrine addressed invisible enemies, striking from impossible distances. Through his earpiece, Marcus heard similar reports from his fellow snipers, positioned throughout the mountain range. Corporal Johnson had eliminated a supply convoy's leadership from 3 kilometers away. Sergeant Williams had neutralized an entire communication post without the enemy ever knowing they were under attack. Private Rodriguez had single-handedly stopped an armored column by killing its commanders faster than they could be replaced. The Zephyrians had brought overwhelming force to Kepler 442b, expecting another quick conquest. Instead, they found themselves fighting ghosts. Marcus remembered his training on Earth, where human military doctrine had evolved over millennia of warfare against other humans. Every conflict had taught valuable lessons. The importance of concealment, the value of precision over power, the psychological impact of invisible death. Human armies had learned to respect the sniper, understanding that one skilled marksman could influence battles far beyond their apparent capabilities. The aliens had no such experience. Their conquests had always been straightforward affairs of superior firepower and numbers. They had never faced an enemy that could reach out across kilometers of empty space and touch death to their leaders with surgical precision. As the day progressed, the reports coming through Marcus's earpiece painted a picture of systematic destruction. Human sniper teams, positioned throughout the theater of operations, were dismantling Zephyrian forces piece by piece. Not through brute force or technological superiority, but through patience, skill, and understanding of warfare that the aliens simply couldn't comprehend. The Zephyrian reinforcements that arrived found only confusion. Their advance forces were scattered, leaderless, unable to explain what had happened. Communications were down throughout the sector. Officers who tried to take command were eliminated within minutes of identifying themselves. Supply lines were cut by invisible enemies who struck and disappeared like smoke. By sunset on Kepler 442b, the Zephyrian invasion force was in full retreat. They had lost nearly 60% of their officer corps without ever seeing their attackers. Their soldiers, trained only to follow orders, were unable to function effectively without clear command structure. Marcus packed his rifle as darkness fell, satisfied with the day's work. This was only the beginning. Word would spread throughout the galaxy about what had happened here. The Zephyrian Empire would adapt, as all enemies eventually did. But humanity had announced itself as something new in galactic warfare, a species that fought not with brute strength or advanced technology, but with precision, patience, and the accumulated wisdom of 10,000 years of human conflict. The war was far from over, but the balance had shifted. The galaxy was about to learn why humans had survived so long on a world filled with predators far more dangerous than themselves. They had become the ultimate predators, not through strength or speed, but through intelligence, adaptability, and the ability to kill from distances that other species couldn't even imagine. As Marcus made his way back to base, he wondered what the alien species would think when they realized the truth. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technology or numbers. It was the accumulated experience of a species that had spent its entire evolutionary history learning to kill each other from increasingly impossible distances. The Zephyrian Empire was about to face an enemy unlike any they had encountered before. Not monsters or machines, but precise, patient, utterly human killers who could reach across the battlefield and touch death itself to anyone foolish enough to make themselves a target. The war that would define humanity's place in the galaxy had begun, and the first lesson was already written in Zephyrian blood across the crimson sands of Kepler. 4.4.2b. When humans went to war, no one was safe. No distance was too far, and no target was beyond their reach. The Zephyrian War Council convened in absolute silence aboard their flagship, Eternal Dominion, Emperor Vex Taroth, his massive frame encased in ceremonial armor that had never seen actual combat, stared at the holographic displays showing their catastrophic losses on Kepler 442b. Around him, his surviving generals maintained rigid postures, but their mandibles clicked nervously, a sign of stress among their species. "Explain," the Emperor commanded, his voice resonating through the chamber like grinding stone. General Claudeth, the only field commander to survive the planet-side disaster, activated the tactical display. The enemy possessed weapons capable of striking at extreme distances. Our forces were eliminated systematically, starting with command personnel. "Impossible," Admiral Vorthok interjected, his forearms gesturing dismissively. "Our intelligence reports indicate humans possess only primitive projectile weapons. Such technology cannot penetrate our armor." Claudeth's response carried the weight of witnessed horror. "Admiral, I observed 17 officers die within the first hour of engagement. Each death was precise, instantaneous, occurring from distances our sensors could not even detect enemy presence." Emperor Vex Taroth studied the casualty reports with growing unease. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered 47 star systems over 3 centuries. Never had they encountered resistance that inflicted such specific, targeted losses. Their military doctrine relied on overwhelming force and superior technology. But this enemy fought differently. "What are your recommendations, General?" "We adapt our tactics, Emperor. No more exposed command positions. Distributed leadership. Increased emphasis on detection equipment capable of identifying threats at extreme ranges." The Emperor considered this. Adaptation was not the Zephyrian way, but survival demanded flexibility. "Implement these changes immediately." We will show these humans that the Empire learns from its mistakes. He was wrong. 3 weeks later, Lieutenant Elena Vasquez lay prone on the asteroid designated KC-4471, her ghillie suit blending perfectly with the rocky surface. The modified asteroid served as a forward observation post, providing overwatch for the approaching Zephyrian fleet. Her rifle, an experimental railgun designed specifically for vacuum operations, was trained on the enemy flagship's bridge. The Zephyrians had indeed adapted their tactics. Command officers no longer stood prominently on battlefields. Instead, they directed operations from armored command vehicles, surrounded by interference generators designed to disrupt long-range targeting systems. Their formations had become more flexible, with multiple redundant leadership structures, but they still didn't understand humans. Elena's target wasn't a field commander or communications specialist. Through her scope, she could see into the flagship's observation deck, where Emperor Vex Tereth himself stood reviewing tactical displays. The alien leader believed himself safe behind meters of armor, plating, and energy shielding. Surrounded by the most advanced defensive systems in the Zephyrian fleet, he was wrong. The railgun's projectile traveled at 37% of light speed, crossing the distance between asteroid and flagship in less than 2 seconds. The tungsten uranium penetrator punched through the ship's armor like tissue paper, continued through 6 bulkheads, and struck Emperor Vex Tereth center mass. The impact liquefied the alien leader instantly, sending shockwaves throughout the bridge. Elena was already repositioning as chaos erupted across the Zephyrian fleet. Her second shot targeted the flagship's primary communication array, severing the fleet's ability to coordinate effectively. The third shot eliminated the backup communication system. Within minutes, the most powerful armada in Zephyrian history was reduced to individual ships operating without central command. But Elena's kill was only one part of a larger coordinated strike. Across the star system, human sniper teams had positioned themselves on asteroids, space stations, and hidden platforms. Each team had spent weeks studying Zephyrian patterns, identifying critical targets, calculating impossible shots. When Elena fired the signal shot that killed their emperor, 53 other snipers opened fire simultaneously. Staff Sergeant Robert Kim eliminated Admiral Vorthak from a distance of 47 kilometers, his modified anti-material rifle turning the alien commander into component atoms. Corporal Lisa Chang targeted the fleet's chief engineer from inside a hollowed-out asteroid, her shot traveling through an airlock at precisely the moment it opened. Private Michael Torres took out 3 separate ship commanders in rapid succession, his advanced targeting computer calculating trajectories that defied conventional physics. The psychological impact was devastating. Zephyrian crews watched their leaders die impossibly, struck down by enemies they couldn't see, couldn't locate, couldn't fight. Some ships attempted to retreat, only to discover that their navigation officers were also targets. Others tried to advance, but their tactical coordinators were eliminated before they could issue orders. Within 4 hours, the most powerful military force in Zephyrian history was scattered, leaderless, and broken. The surviving ships that managed to escape carried tales that spread throughout the galaxy like wildfire. Stories of human snipers who could kill across impossible distances, who struck like ghosts and disappeared without trace, who could reach anyone, anywhere, regardless of protection or distance. In the aftermath, Dr. Lydia Chen, Marcus's sister and a xenopsychologist with the Confederation Science Division, studied the captured Zephyrian communications. What she discovered changed humanity's understanding of their role in galactic warfare forever. "The aliens literally cannot comprehend what we're doing," she explained to the assembled military leadership. Their entire evolutionary history involved close-quarters combat. They developed as apex predators on their homeworld, using strength and armor to dominate. The concept of killing from distances beyond visual range doesn't exist in their psychological framework. General Mitchell leaned forward with interest. "Explain further, Doctor. Imagine trying to teach a fish about flying. They understand swimming, diving, underwater combat. But the concept of aerial warfare is so foreign to their experience that they can't properly process it. To the Zephyrians, what our snipers are doing appears supernatural, magical, impossible. The implications were staggering. Humanity had stumbled upon a form of warfare that their enemies couldn't even conceptualize, let alone counter effectively. But Dr. Chen's research revealed something even more significant. As news of human sniper capabilities spread, other species throughout the galaxy began re-evaluating their own military doctrines. The crystalline Kithara, with their psychic abilities, had never developed long-range kinetic weapons because they could read enemy intentions before attacks occurred. But human snipers moved with such patience and planning that their intentions remained undetectable until the moment of firing. The insectoid Veltar, possessing compound eyes that could detect movement across vast distances, had never needed to hide their positions during combat. Human sniper tactics of concealment and camouflage were revolutionary concepts that their military strategists struggled to understand. Even ally species within the Confederation found themselves reconsidering fundamental assumptions about warfare. The Thurokans, with their massive strength and heavy armor, had always focused on frontal assault tactics. Watching human snipers eliminate enemies without ever being seen challenged their basic understanding of military engagement. As the war progressed, demand for human military advisors skyrocketed throughout Confederation space. Every species wanted to understand how humans had developed such precise, patient, devastatingly effective combat techniques. The answer, Dr. Chen realized, lay in humanity's evolutionary history. Earth was a death world by galactic standards, populated by predators so diverse and deadly that survival required constant adaptation. Humans had evolved not as apex predators through strength or speed, but through intelligence, tool use, and the ability to kill threats from safe distances. We spent 200,000 years learning to hunt mammoth with spears, Dr. Chen explained in her landmark paper. Then 10,000 years perfecting archery. Then 500 years developing firearms. Then 200 years creating precision rifle technology. Every step of human development involved killing things from increasingly impossible distances. What we call marksmanship, the galaxy calls supernatural. The Zephyrian Empire, meanwhile, was collapsing internally. Word of their emperor's death had reached their core worlds, triggering succession wars between rival factions. But even more damaging was the psychological impact of human sniper tactics on their military forces. Zephyrian soldiers, once confident in their armor and overwhelming firepower, now lived in constant fear of invisible death. Officers refused to take command positions, knowing that human snipers could eliminate them from distances their technology couldn't even detect. Ships maintained maximum separation during fleet operations, making coordination impossible, but providing the illusion of safety. The final blow came when Private Jessica Martinez, positioned on a moon orbiting the Zephyrian capital world, eliminated Crown Prince Zek's villa from a distance of 112 kilometers. The shot, fired through the prince's palace window during a diplomatic ceremony, traveled through 3 different atmospheric layers and struck with such precision that observing aliens initially believed the prince had simply collapsed from natural causes. The psychological warfare aspect was deliberate. Human command had realized that killing enemy leaders was only part of the strategy. Making those kills appear supernatural, impossible, beyond any defense, created terror that spread far beyond the immediate military impact. Zephyrian society began demanding peace negotiations, but humanity's terms were non-negotiable: complete withdrawal from Confederation space and formal recognition of human military superiority. The aliens, desperate to end the invisible war that was destroying their empire, agreed to terms that would have been unthinkable before they encountered human snipers. But humanity's transformation of galactic warfare was just beginning. Species throughout the galaxy were requesting human military training, trying to learn techniques that seemed to violate their understanding of physics and psychology. Human snipers became the most valuable military assets in Confederation space, with their services requested for conflicts throughout the star cluster. The war had proven something that would reshape galactic politics forever. Technological superiority and overwhelming force meant nothing against enemies who could reach across impossible distances and touch death to anyone foolish enough to make themselves a target. Humanity had found their place in the galaxy not as the strongest or fastest or most technologically advanced species, but as something far more terrifying. The patient killers who could eliminate anyone, anywhere, anytime, from distances that other species couldn't even imagine. 5 years after the Zephyrian War ended, Captain Sarah Chen stood in the observation deck of the Confederation flagship Times Unity's Edge *, watching the most unusual military exercise in galactic history unfold before her. 30 different species had sent their finest warriors to learn from human snipers, hoping to understand the techniques that had revolutionized warfare across the galaxy. Below, on the training planet Zerion 7, Master Sergeant Marcus Chen, now the galaxy's most famous sniper instructor, was teaching a mixed class of alien students the fundamentals of long-range precision killing. What should have been a simple lesson in marksmanship had become something approaching religious revelation for species that had never conceived of such warfare. The key, Marcus explained to his diverse class of students, is patience. The massive Thurocon warrior Grok Thar shifted uncomfortably, his 8-foot frame struggling with the concept. But Sergeant Chen, the enemy remains exposed for 17.4 seconds. Why do we wait longer? Marcus smiled, an expression that had become legendary throughout military circles across 17 star systems. Because, Lieutenant Grok Thar, we wait for the perfect shot. Not just any shot. Watch. He demonstrated using the training simulation, tracking a target through his scope for nearly 10 minutes, before finally squeezing the trigger. The projectile traveled across the simulated battlefield and struck the target with absolute precision. I had that shot after 30 seconds, the Valari student Zixanth observed, her forearms gesturing rapidly in confusion. My reflexes would have completed the engagement immediately. And you would have missed, Marcus replied patiently. You would have fired at where the target was, not where he was going to be. You would have calculated for current wind conditions, not the wind shift that occurred 40 seconds later. You would have achieved a kill, but not the perfect kill that eliminates any possibility of return fire or tactical response. The concepts were revolutionary for most species. The insectoid Veltar had evolved with compound eyes that could track dozens of targets simultaneously, making them excellent at rapid engagement, but terrible at the focused, patient observation that human sniping required. The crystalline Cathara could read enemy emotions and intentions, but human sniper techniques involved emptying one's mind completely, achieving a state of calm that made psychic detection impossible. Even the other mammalian species struggled with human approaches to warfare. The lupine Fenracs were excellent hunters with keen senses and pack coordination, but they instinctively wanted to close with their prey for the kill. The concept of eliminating targets from distances where the enemy couldn't even theoretically fight back seemed almost unfair to their predatory nature. But they all wanted to learn, because they all remembered what happened to the Zephyrian Empire. The official history called it the Long Peace that followed the Zephyrian surrender. But military strategists throughout the galaxy knew better. The peace existed because every potential aggressor understood that humanity could reach across impossible distances and eliminate their leadership before they could even declare war. The demonstration of this principle had come 18 months after the Zephyrian surrender, when the hegemony of Scarthul decided to test human resolve. The Reptilian Empire controlled 12 star systems and possessed the galaxy's most advanced shield technology. Their leadership believed themselves immune to human sniper tactics. They were catastrophically wrong. The Scarthul offensive began with simultaneous attacks on 3 Confederation outposts. Within hours, they had captured 2 stations and were advancing on the 3rd. Their shields deflected all conventional weapons. Their tactics were sound, their coordination flawless. Then humanity responded. Warrant Officer Catherine Rodriguez, positioned on a comet in the outer system, fired a single shot that traveled for 6 hours and 17 minutes across interplanetary space before striking Supreme Admiral Thek Moore through his command ship's viewing portal. The shot had been calculated to intercept the comet's orbital path with the enemy fleet's projected position, accounting for gravitational influences from 3 different planets and 2 moons. The psychological impact was immediate and devastating. Scarthul forces realized that nowhere in the star system was safe from human snipers. Their shields might deflect energy weapons and conventional projectiles, but human rifles fired rounds that traveled too slowly for their defensive systems to track, yet carried enough kinetic energy to penetrate any armor when they finally arrived. The war lasted exactly 4 days. By the end, every Scarthul flag officer was dead, killed by shots that had been fired before the war even began. Human snipers had calculated orbital mechanics and battle plans so precisely that they could eliminate enemy leadership before those leaders even knew they were under attack. Captain Sarah Chen remembered reading the after-action reports with a mixture of pride and profound unease. Humanity had achieved something unprecedented in galactic warfare: the ability to end conflicts before they truly began. But that capability came with responsibilities that no species had ever faced before. "We've become something new," she had written in her classified assessment. "Not conquerors, not defenders, but something approaching galactic police. Every species knows that if they become aggressive, if they threaten the peace, human snipers will eliminate their leadership from distances and timeframes they can't even comprehend." The transformation extended beyond military applications. Human sniper techniques were being adapted for exploration, scientific research, and even diplomacy. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the same sniper who had killed Emperor Vex Teroth, now worked with xenobiologists to study dangerous alien wildlife from safe distances. Her precision shooting skills allowed researchers to place tracking devices or collect samples from creatures that would normally be impossible to approach. Corporate security throughout the galaxy now employed human advisors to develop sniper-proof facilities and protocols. The mere possibility that human marksmen might target their leadership had forced every major corporation and government to completely redesign their security procedures. But the most significant change was psychological. For the first time in galactic history, aggressive expansion had become genuinely risky for any species. The traditional calculus of warfare, technological advantage, numerical superiority, strategic positioning, meant nothing when human snipers could eliminate leadership from impossible distances with mathematical precision. Master Sergeant Marcus Chen watched his alien students struggle with the mental discipline required for precision shooting, and reflected on how much the galaxy had changed. These warriors represented species that had fought wars for millennia. But they were all here, learning from humans because humanity had revolutionized the fundamental nature of conflict. "The shot isn't about the rifle," he explained to the class, as they prepared for their final examination. "It isn't about the bullet, or the distance, or the target. The shot is about understanding time and space and patience in ways that other species have never needed to develop." He gestured toward the training range where targets were positioned at various distances, some moving, some stationary, all requiring different approaches and calculations. "Every one of you can learn to fire accurately. But humans developed something beyond accuracy. We developed the ability to see the battlefield not as it is, but as it will be. We learned to think in timescales that other species don't naturally comprehend." The Kithara student Silandra raised her crystalline appendage in question. "But, Sergeant, our psychic abilities should provide superior targeting capability. We can read enemy intentions directly." Marcus nodded approvingly. "Excellent point, Corporal Silandra. And in close combat, your abilities are indeed superior. But human sniping operates outside the range of psychic detection. We empty our minds completely, becoming essentially invisible to psychic scanning. When we fire, there's no emotion, no intention to read. Just mathematics and physics." The demonstration that followed became legendary among the trainees. Marcus positioned himself at the maximum range of the facility, nearly 15 kilometers from his target. He spent 43 minutes simply observing, calculating, waiting. When he finally fired, the shot traveled through 3 different weather systems, compensated for Xerion 7's unusual magnetic fields, and struck a target the size of a dinner plate with absolute precision. The alien students stood in stunned silence, trying to comprehend what they had witnessed. For species that had evolved different approaches to warfare, Human sniping represented something approaching supernatural ability. But Marcus knew the truth was simpler and more profound. Humans hadn't developed these skills through supernatural means or advanced technology. They had learned precision killing through 200,000 years of evolutionary pressure on a world where everything was trying to kill them. The secret, he told his students in their final class, is that humans never evolved to be apex predators through strength or speed. We became apex predators through intelligence, patience, and the willingness to kill threats from distances where they couldn't fight back. Every predator on Earth taught us this lesson. We either learned to kill them before they could reach us, or we died. As the training program concluded and alien warriors returned to their respective military commands, word spread throughout the galaxy about what they had learned. Human military advisors became the most sought-after consultants in galactic space. Species that had once dismissed humanity as unremarkable now competed for human military partnerships. The transformation was complete. Humanity had found its place in the galactic community not through technological advancement or diplomatic skill, but through the patient, precise application of violence that other species couldn't match or understand. Captain Sarah Chen reviewed the final reports as Times Unity's Edge Times prepared to depart Zerion 7. The training program had been successful beyond all expectations, but it had also revealed something troubling. Despite intensive instruction, no alien species had truly mastered human sniper techniques. They could learn the mechanics, understand the physics, even achieve reasonable accuracy, but they couldn't replicate the mental discipline and patient calculation that made human snipers truly devastating. "We remain unique," she noted in her classified report to Confederation Command. "Human sniping capability cannot be replicated or effectively countered by any known species. This gives humanity a permanent strategic advantage, but also makes us responsible for maintaining galactic stability." The irony wasn't lost on her. Humanity, the youngest and seemingly least impressive species in the Confederation, had become the backbone of galactic peace, not through diplomacy or technology, but through the simple threat that aggressive actions would result in invisible death delivered from impossible distances. As Times Unity's Edge Times jumped to hyperspace, heading toward their next assignment, Captain Chen wondered what her great-grandfather would think of humanity's role in the galaxy. Marcus Chen's brother had been a Marine sniper during Earth's final World War, defending humanity's home planet from environmental collapse and resource conflicts. Now, 3 generations later, human snipers defended entire star systems from threats their ancestors could never have imagined. The techniques developed in Earth's bloodiest conflicts had become the foundation of interstellar peace. The war that proved human snipers were the galaxy's apex predators was over. But its legacy would shape galactic civilization for centuries to come. Humanity had taught the universe a fundamental lesson. In any conflict, the species that could kill their enemies from the greatest distance with the highest precision would ultimately prevail. And no species in the known galaxy could match humanity's patient, precise, utterly lethal approach to the ancient art of war. The second phase of the war was ending, but humanity's reputation as the galaxy's apex predators was just beginning.